Attention on deck. Welcome to the Warships Podcast with your hosts, Gaylord, Kami Samurai, and Vanacera.
Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Warships Podcast. First off, we'd like to apologize for not having a show last week, as we had a wave of illness passing through the podcast members. We're back this week, and boy, do we ever have a lot to talk about. First off is the breaking news that the World of Warships Asia region appears to have confirmed that we'll see the Musashi in the game, which is the sister ship of the Yamato. There's been some chatter that kind of leads me to believe that she might end up being a Tier 9 premium available for free XP like Missouri, but we'll see how that kind of ends up. The other possibility that's been expressed is that she might be a Tier 10 reward ship for the upcoming clan battles that we're expecting. So we'll get into that a little bit more later. But it was mentioned that she was expected before the end of 2017, so in the near future for sure. Kami, Vanessa, I kind of wanted to get your opinion about the potential for 460mm guns at maybe Tier 9. Or do you think that they might artificially downgrade Musashi in some way? I would also note that I do expect that the original Yamato-class configuration, as she was built, will be the configuration we'll see Musashi in, which means reduced AA and two 155mm wing turrets in addition to the 155mm turrets that are on Yamato, which may end up having her be more of a secondary build type of battleship like the German ones. Did you guys have any thoughts about how that might pan out?
Well, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, yeah, a bunch of Mogami turrets on your Yamato class. Yeah, I mean, that would, I think that could be a viable option for Tier 9, especially if you got the AA. That'd make it very vulnerable to carriers. And, I mean, those guns, you know, it's 18.1-inch guns, and, you know, they kind of lull pin everything. But, you know, you're a big target. Everyone shoots at you. Everyone launches torpedoes at you. So you're still going to suffer from, you know, kind of the same problems that Yamato has, being kind of the center of attention. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But it should be interesting. If it is Tier 10 and they do it as a clan reward, you know, I think that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, at Tier 9, it'd be quite interesting. You'd have a lot of teams that are going to have a lot of HP to farm because there'd be a lot of battleships. I don't really know. I guess from a historical perspective, it'd be kind of cool because you'd have, you know, the Essex class carriers at Tier 9 and the Musashi at Tier 9, and we know who won that fight. But in the original configuration, you would have to play it, I think, a little bit differently. But would it have the same HP? Would it have less HP? Would it have, you know, would the guns do the same pin? You know, there's a lot of questions that would have to be answered about it depending on the tier. Because if it's you know, and how much free XP would it cost? Would it be the same as the Missouri? Would it have anything special like the Missouri? You know, the Missouri has radar. What would the Musashi have? You know, would it have, quote unquote, maybe?
Or are the 460mm guns at Tier 9 considered special, quote unquote?
Yeah, I mean, is it going to have, you know, its special little flavor? You know, is it going to have, I don't know, like a secondary thing, or is it going to, you know, there's a lot we don't know. We just know we've seen the picture, right? That's what we know, and there's rumors out there about it. But as a clan reward, my thing is, if it's Tier 9, why play Tier 9 if you have the Yamato at Tier 10? That's just my feeling, because you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to play a 9, you might as well play a 10. But it would be cool to have. It'd be cool to have both of them. It would be cool to see the differences and see how it plays in game. So I look forward to it. And of course we have no idea on when, where, how, anything like that. So, but
yeah, this is literally just this morning that this news has come out. So we have literally nothing. This is 100% speculation. I agree, Kami.
But it's also cool that it's been spoiled. So, you know, let the speculation begin, and hopefully Wargaming in, you know, due time will tell us more. Maybe it'll be a mission. Who knows? There's so many options that they have that they can do with this ship. And, it's one of those ships that's wanted. There's a lot of people that want it. And, there's other ships that everyone wants, at some point will make it into the game.
The other thing is that High School Fleet is their collaboration this year. And that's not, their contract with them is not over. And one of the biggest ships in High School Fleet is the HSF Musashi. So I hesitate to put forward that it might be the anime version of that ship, but I think we can agree that the HSF ships were a much bigger success in terms of implementation in the game than the ARP ships were. So I don't think that I would mind too much.
Absolutely.
Did you just put Poi on the Musashi?
I just put Poi on the Musashi. I should be drawn and quartered, shouldn't I, Kami?
Mm-hmm.
So not only were not to be the only new ship teased, we got teasers for the USS Massachusetts this week, the Commonwealth Destroyer Vampire. Last week we got Hung Hee, and we're also supposed to be testing Cesare and Hung Hee. We were supposed to get those yesterday, and none of us did, so we don't have any updates on for you this week, but we will get you information about those ships next week, as we have a ton of things to talk about this week anyway, so we wouldn't be able to do them justice in the short amount of time that we have this week. But do look forward to the ships that are coming down the line. But, we've had quite an inundation of new ships that are in the pipeline, not to mention a few that we've tested, but we still haven't seen in the release, like Makarov and Kid. This, for some reason, I feel like this year that they have just gone way out of their way to provide way more ships in the game in terms of premiums and than they did in the past year. What do you guys think?
Yeah, totally. Let's not discount the fact that look how much content has come out with the co-op scenario battles, and we're about to get, we just got the clan base, and at some point really soon we'll be getting clan battles. So between all of that and all the ships, this game is very dynamic, and there's a lot of stuff coming out. If you are used to kind of, playing PC games, and developers, maybe every 6 months you might see something new come down, and maybe you'll get a patch, or maybe you'll get no, that's not World of Warships. Every 3 weeks, there's literally something definitely new to talk about. So this game is always improving, always changing. Wait a moment, and you'll be surprised.
Yeah. To the premiums, I know there's been a lot of talk on Reddit and the forums about too many battleships. I know that's been a big topic. And honestly, what is the Vampire? Is that the DD that's coming out?
Yes, it's the Commonwealth Destroyer Vampire, and it's going to be Tier 3, I believe.
Ooh, Tier 3. You won't see me play it, but to the battleships, I'm wondering what they're going to do with the Massachusetts that's going to be different than the Alabama. And
a lot of people are speculating that she might have radar, which I find to be an interesting speculation, but especially because they say the configuration is 1946.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So you'd have that if the Massachusetts, I'm going to say this right now, if the Massachusetts has radar, that's going to completely flip Tier 8 competitive play on its head.
I'm going to be really disappointed, sorry to interject, if they release Massachusetts with radar and they don't bring out USS Washington with radar.
We understand you're in Washington, Vanessa. We understand that.
What's that, the 503rd time that's been brought up on the show, Vanessa?
But,
hey, if Pigeon can keep bringing the Enterprise up until the Enterprise was released, I figure... Washington.
Hey, the difference is that Pigeon actually works for Warden.
But it's interesting too. If you look at the game, right? We have the Alabama. We know we're getting the Massachusetts. We have the Iowa. We know we have the Missouri as well. So we have not sisters of ships that are already in the game. Now, what's really interesting is what are they going to do with the South Dakota? I'm thinking they're saving it for whenever they do the battleship split. Now, I don't know. You bring out a ship at tier 8 with radar that is a battleship, that's just going to cause a whole another uproar, because they're going to be like, battleships have the radar, battleships can live forever. All this talk that lately has been going on about battleships. I think that battleships are great. I mean, I have the majority of my games in battleships, but there's to a point where battleships shouldn't get everything. And I think if battleships start, getting radar and they have all these things, it's going to make people not want to play the other classes. And I mean, that could be a topic for another day that we talk about, classes and where they're at in the game now. But I feel like battleships have slowly risen to the top, and everything else is kind of, chasing the battleship.
Yeah, and I think that they're experimenting with different things to kind of moderate the power of battleships. I don't want to say nerf. And a couple of those things are, the smoke changes that they talked about that actually didn't get released, and then the deep water torpedoes. But I did want to bring up the topic that you were talking about, because it involves battleships as well, Kami. Is that there's the proposal that they're talking about to remove guaranteed over-penetration damage from AP shells on destroyers. So I know that this was your topic that you brought up, Kami, and I'd kind of like you to lead it off for us, especially with kind of what your thoughts are on the background and where this might lead play.
Well, it's been an interesting thing. I know that some other people have covered videos on this, but battleship shooting DDs has been a topic that recently has really exploded. And we played since way back in the day when even DDs had citadels, so we know how that works. But when you're in a battleship, especially a higher tier battleship, and you shoot a DD and you do massive damage to it, they're limited on what they can do. But as a battleship player and a DD makes a mistake, you also want to be able to punish that DD. So I think as the range you shoot at DDs gets farther away, I think you should have damage that you can do to that DD at a maximum. But if they're close to you and that DD makes a mistake, you should be able to nuke that DD just like that DD can nuke a battleship with torpedoes. There's a lot of over pins and pins on DDs. You really don't know. And there's DDs that take more damage than other DDs, and we've seen it. I mean, and it's harder to hit, say, a Benson swerving than it is, say, a Gearing swerving. Or, there's a lot in this game that people don't take into account. The Khabarovsk having that 50 millimeter plate. I don't know. What do you guys think on DDs? Do you think they should take full pin damage, or do you think that they should just take overpins? Because you got to remember, if they're only taking overpins and a battleship is shooting AP at it, if it's even if it's a Fletcher, I mean, that's, 17, 18, 19 overpins that you got to do till you kill it. And then there's the whole aspect of HE, right? Like, I've been playing the Conqueror lately, and you shoot a DD with HE, you literally break his whole ship and do massive damage. So...
Or you do no damage, which is my big problem.
Yeah, or you break all the modules and you do no damage to the ship. So it's a real fine balance of, we advocate to shoot DDs with AP so that you get the guaranteed overpin damage, let alone the pin damage. So it's an interesting topic to discuss. Vanessa, you give us your take since you are our DD player.
I always try and keep, my head on a swivel and try and see who's shooting at me and, try and dodge the shots, and it doesn't matter. You still get hit, and everyone's shooting AP, and you take a lot of damage. And, you'll be going along, I'll be fighting, and I'm just like, ow. Lose half my health. The sound is ringing and oh, well, yeah, and you just watch all your health go away. Yeah, it's very frustrating because oftentimes there's things that are way out of your control as a destroyer, and there's other things that, if you had some situational awareness, you probably could have avoided that, but your whole kind of role as a destroyer is to kind of get in there and scout and be the eyes for your team if you don't have a carrier. So in order to kind of get into position, you kind of have to put yourself out there, especially if you're going to do any damage whatsoever. and or if you're going to interdict their destroyers. So, you take damage. Everyone focuses you as soon as you're spotted, because once you're spotted, oftentimes that if you're playing smart, that might be the only opportunity for the enemy team to actually shoot at you. And, it's a fine, I guess it's a fine balance. And with all the radar, and a lot of people seem to be playing carriers more. I know I played a lot of carriers yesterday. But I would say if you're going to nerf AP damage to destroyers, maybe make the secondaries a little more effective so that battleships don't feel as helpless that close. I was charging a Yamato who messed up the other day in my Fletcher. My Z-52. And was charging in, gonna torp this Yamato, missed his up-close shot, and it's like, oh, that's it. You're done. I'm gonna torp you, and that's that. 15 kilometers away, a Kurfürst decided, nope, and just annihilated me with AP. And it was like, well, this Yamato was supposed to be punished, and now I just got insta-gibbed by Kurfürst from like 15 kilometers away, and it's really frustrating. So, I've been on both sides. I've been there with my battleship and made that amazing shot on destroyers, and it's like, do your job, focus enemy destroyers when they appear. It's really disappointing. It's disappointing that, it can do that. Any battleship can do that much damage, to you if, you're doing everything right and, you got taken out. And while I feel that, you should be able to do damage, and I've been on both sides. I've been there, in my battleship, making those shots, firing at destroyers as they appear, and taking them, doing either a lot of damage or taking them out. But as a destroyer player, if a cruiser messes up, a battleship punishes them. If a destroyer messes up around a cruiser's going to punish them. But oftentimes, if a battleship messes up, a destroyer goes in to punish, and more often than not, I feel like the destroyer does not actually get to punish and do kind of their original rock, paper, scissors role that Wargaming, kind of had for them.
It's interesting that you bring up rock, paper, scissors, Vanessa, because I really feel like that has gotten a little lost in terms of the gameplay, in my opinion, because I don't see the best. What's the best counter to a destroyer? It's another destroyer, a better gun shooting destroyer. Cruisers are, they're supposed to be the anti-destroyer, protection, but in reality, cruisers are best shooting at battleships, and battleships are best shooting at cruisers. So you get this binary set, and then you have both destroyers and aircraft carriers on the outside of, cruisers and battleships shooting at each other. So I feel like it's a part of gameplay that is fundamentally off in the game, just in general.
Well, here's my thing on that. It has been skewed as the game has evolved, and really it kind of started, when the radar was introduced to the game, and there's been a lot of things added to the game that have changed the game, and I feel like part of it is some of the mechanics in the game, but also some of it is the player base. I mean, when new things are introduced to the game, you got to adjust your play to go with how the game is going. So, for instance, if that smoke change was introduced when it was supposed to, since they changed it or whatever, release date, you'd have to change your game again, right? Because you wouldn't just be able to smoke up a division mate or whatever and put them in smoke and blah, blah, blah. So I think part of it is the game and part of it is the player base. We have to evolve with the game. But I see what Vanessa is saying about, that Kerfer's, blapping her from 15 kilometers. So that brings us back to where I originally started. Do you think that there should be a limit on range of when you can do penetrations to a DD? Now, I don't know coding. I don't know if you would even be able to code that into the game. But, say the DD's under 10 kilometers, you could still get full pins, but over 10 kilometers, you can only get over pins. Do you think that would be a solution? Because it would still allow a DD to make a mistake, within 10 kilometers and get away at once it reaches that 10 kilometer mark safely. But if it's within range where it deserves to be punished by a battleship, you should still punish it with the battleship in the sense of, that DD comes into 5 kilometers, goes broadside, the battleship should be able to punish that. So, there are a lot of things they can do, but right now, I don't know. I don't want to promote DDs playing more passive than I've already seen DDs play, but I also want to, I don't want DDs to just get nuked either. Because when you think about it in random games, with the experience that we have as a group and our clan and, a lot of the better players in this game know that if you lose a DD or two early, that game just becomes exponentially harder. And it may not be from eating a torpedo or other DDs. It could literally be from a battleship, blasting them from 18 kilometers. So there's a lot to take into account with DDs and the survivability.
So I guess my biggest objection to, limiting damage to DDs over 10 kilometers is that would be a massive buff to the Khabarovsk. You basically make Khabarovsk a god among destroyers that it literally can't die. Because what Khabarovsk that has any sense at all comes within 10 kilometers of anything. And if you're more than 10 kilometers away into Khabarovsk and you can't be anything other than overpen, you won't die, especially now that it has a heal. I mean, that would be my biggest objection is that, for torpedo-based destroyers that are trying to punish battleships, I totally get it. It makes perfect sense. But when you're talking about destroyers that never have to come in that kind of range to do all of their damage, you're making them essentially invulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be something that's going to be, I don't know. I don't even, this is all speculation on our point. I don't even know if they're looking at DDs and the damage they take. I just know it really became a hot topic recently. But I mean, I don't know.
No, I think it's totally worth talking about because it's one of those things that it's one of the more controversial aspects of the game is destroyer versus battleship gameplay and kind of the dominance of battleships in the current meta of the game. So I totally agree that it needs to be talked about. I just trying to find the conscientious objections to that particular solution.
Well, take this into account as well. DDs have one thing going for them, right? Their concealment. So if you're in a DD and you're not paying attention to your distance from another ship, I think that falls on the captain of the DD. Now there is radar, there is hydro, but as a DD captain especially, you should know the ranges to all of those things. You should know if the enemy team has a Chapayev, you should know that the radar goes 11.7 kilometers and that it lasts 20 seconds. If they have a Low Yang, you should know that Low Yang has Hydra that goes over 5 kilometers. There are other things that DD players need to pay attention to. They just shouldn't always be allowed to just complain about everything in the game. There are things that, as a player, you need to pay attention to as well. If you're a DD, and I've seen it a few times over the last few days, I've seen DDs charging Des Moines.
That's just stupid.
There is no excuse for that. But I understand also the DD side where it's like the radar goes through islands and all. There's all this other things that go into it as well that have been talked about. But as a DD player, especially a DD player, you need to know concealment ranges. You need to look at the other team's roster and be like, well, I'm in my Fletcher. That guy's in a Yagumo. I know his detection range is better than mine, but I also know if I find him, I can gun him down pretty quick. So there's a lot of things that DD players have to look for, and I feel like it's arguably the toughest class in the game to play correctly. all the time. CV, yes, because, it's a whole different style, but DD has such an impact on the game. And we know this. We know this from competitive play, watching competitive play, playing in scrims, playing in, the qualifiers, that if a DD dies, that the whole game changes. So I think it comes down to players have to also pay more attention when they are playing as a DD.
Yeah, I was going to add, it's like, playing a destroyer, you absolutely have to be on top of your game, or else you're sunk and you're going back to port. You can't necessarily say the same about battleships. Battleships, you can kind of just cruise around and, press WASD and shoot every 30 seconds. Now, I'm not saying that.
Don't forget eating the ice cream.
Yeah, or sandwiches in Kami's case. I'm not saying battleships are super easy, but I am saying that destroyers. I mean, both of you guys are battleship players, and you both, I would presume, agree. There is so much more that you have to know as a destroyer player in order to survive and do good than you would, say, a battleship player. And that's not to discount cruisers either. Cruisers, I feel, are, especially at high tier, difficult to succeed well. Because if you do a mistake, you're definitely dead too.
I will say that the skill floor for destroyers and cruisers is much higher than it is for a battleship. And maybe the skill ceiling is higher for those ships as well. I don't. That's hard to say. But I think it gets back down to that. I think that Wargaming is looking at fundamental aspects of their gameplay and trying to not necessarily change them, but refine them to have a better gameplay for everybody. That's kind of the and they're trying to do it iteratively, right? They're trying to do one small change at a time instead of having one huge change that the whole community might reject. So I think that that's the right way to go about it. But I think at this point we just kind of have to have a wait and see thing, and to be receptive and constructively critical when ideas are floated, like the smoke changes or the AP changes and things like that, and have discussions about it and work through it as a community and not just cry wolf all the time. So I did want to move us on a little bit because we got some more topics to talk about. Last week, the Lexington Let's Battle Tour event was delayed, and that wasn't really surprising with the effects of Hurricane Harvey. And this week it was announced that it would be rescheduled for November 4th. I still plan on trying to make the Lexington Let's Battle Tour event on November 4th. And I do hope that we're going to see Tragic, Nico, and Trev's over there, or some combination of them, as I know that they weren't going to be able to make the original Let's Battle Tour event due to some personal obligations that they are going through. But speaking of hurricanes, Hurricane Irma affected a member of the Wargaming community contributor community. I'm talking, of course, about Ship Comrade, who lost his father during the storm, lost the roof on his house, and is in the middle of his wife's fight against cancer. It's been a really tragic thing for him to have gone through the Hurricane Irma, as well as the other thing that are happening for him. And I encourage you that if you can help him out, to head over to the GoFundMe page that we'll link in the podcast description, and try and give him a few bucks to help bury his father and get some closure there and get a new roof on his house. So, yeah, we do hope that you guys can be generous in his time of need. On a happier note, the 2 new test configurations of Graf Zeppelin are live for those who bought her originally. These test versions mainly seem to be dealing with the fighters, they're experimenting with Tier 7 versus Tier 8 for the fighters, and what benefits this captain skill changes give for that change. Vanessa, you're something of our Graf Zeppelin expert. Is this just an iterative change, and we should expect to see more changes soon? We've also heard rumors about deep water torpedoes for Graf Zeppelin. Have you gotten a chance to play around with these test versions, and what are your thoughts? So
yes, I have been testing, and I'll just say more changes are coming. Not getting into details, but But yes, I've been testing both iterations of it, and so far I've been leaning towards Test 2. And
can you tell us what that is? What Test 2 is?
So Test 2 has kind of more of a consistent drop with it has a circle instead of the ellipsis. And I just had been seeing to get more success. Now, it might have been the games, because one of the games that I did with Graf Zeppelin 1, I did 61k to a Yamato that was just like out of nowhere, just like boom, and like seriously crazy damage. But the AA is just so crazy, and most of the time you're seeing tier 10 games, so it's been really difficult to actually get in damage. So most of the games I've just been doing fighter work, and I have to say that I have been holding my own in the fighter department and trying to keep the skies clear. And I was going up against like Lexingtons and Enterprises. So I was actually pleasantly surprised with, kind of the upgraded fighters, if you will, downgrading a tier and your fighters are better. And just the success that, I was having. I was enjoying, the speed of the 109s and the boom and zoom, or zoom and boom, or yeah. So getting in there and strafing, I was having a lot of fun with the strafes and just, kind of interdicting enemy fighters and aircraft. That aspect of it was a lot of fun, but they came out with the statement on the Reddit Q&A, like, this is the last carrier that they're going to release for a while until they really overhaul carriers. And I definitely hope they hold true to that statement and kind of, really overhaul carriers, because they're just not really fun. Even like the individual moments here and there where I'll have a little fun, really like the stress of trying to be a competent carrier player for your team and provide and do everything that you need to do for your team while trying to have fun. It's really just a lot of stress. And I don't see, I know Fem, she carries the flag for carriers, and I've seen her have fun in their carrier. And, other carrier players like Farazella, I'm sure he has fun. But I can't see how, a lot of people are having a ton of fun in carriers. Maybe it's just my experience, and maybe, my experience is not necessarily conducive to what other people, but I'm sure there's another player out there who's probably going through the exact same experience I'm going through, and wants to play carriers, but is just not getting what they want out of carriers when they play. And, I'm sure you guys, when you've dabbled in carriers, you see the chat just gets so sour so quickly with carriers, and, it's not fun. And I want them to be fun for everyone.
Yeah, it does get a little toxic in regards to carriers. I was reading a post on Reddit just this morning about a guy that was playing carriers, and he lists the kind of the realities of what carrier players are, and then at the bottom he lists, and most importantly, don't yell at me. And I thought that was a pretty telling statement, because carrier players can often be the target of the rage of people who made mistakes, and they want to blame somebody else for it. So I think that we should kind of give our carrier brethren a little bit of a break when you can, and kind of go from there. Of course, patch 0.6.11 went live this week with some improved clan functionality and the promise of clan battles to come. Significant for its absence, the smoke changes have been withheld from this patch. To me, this signifies that they're still working on how they want to change smoke and to get it into the game in a manner that's going to be an improvement for playing. That said, Kami and I, with our Clan Impact, were part of the clan battle testing, and I think that the community will enjoy clan battles when we see them go live. There has been a little bit of controversy over the upgraded to the amount of oil required to upgrade the clan base. I guess, what are your thoughts here, Kami, about, should we be able to instantly upgrade a base like that, or should there be some, amount of time required to put in to upgrade your base? And what are your thoughts about the idea that we're going to see clan battles at tier 10?
I think that you should be able to instantly upgrade your base? No. I think you should have to put some work into it. Though the big controversy, of course, was the video that iChase released, right? This is kind of about clan size and paywall and all of that, right? I mean, this is kind of, same topic. As a clan leader, I want my players to play. I want them to play the game. I want them to contribute. I want them to feel like they're involved in forming the base. And then, clan wars will be fun as well, because then, we all miss team battles, right? Team battles was really fun when it first came out. The problem is, with the team battles, to find games once you got to a certain point, you had to keep creating new teams, because really there wasn't anything to strive for. There wasn't anything to build off of team battles besides just playing, a big division, basically. So with clan battles coming and all that fun, it's gonna be cool that you get to play, with your clan and there be a goal to achieve. But I think teams should have to work for it. And I know one of the biggest issues is there are small clans and there are big clans, and there's a 30, I think it's a 30 person limit right now that can go
up to 50, but it just requires a lot of oil to upgrade to 50.
Yeah, and I understand that big clans, there are clans out there that have over 100 members that, they all want them under the same clan tag and they all want them in the same battle, in the sense of them collecting the oil for the clan. But you got to remember, there's also clans out there that are only 30 people, 25 people, total. And, how do you keep the playing field even? Do you make divisions in the sense of, teams, these are teams under 50 people, these are teams between 50 and 100, these are clans that are over 100. I mean, is that how you divide it up in the future? And we got to remember, this is the very first iteration. This is the first thing they're doing for team play, really, in World of Warships. I know there's been ranked and team battles back, but this is the first clan-based activity. So instead of everyone jumping to conclusions and everyone say the sky is falling, let's give them some time. Let's give Wargaming some time to evolve what they're trying to do, because they have a plan. They have an idea with what they want to do. And yes, they are going to take constructive criticism from the community, but we also need to give them time to do what they're trying to do. And then we can talk to them about it. Sub Octavian has been very open on Reddit about talking about things. He's also very open to us. He comes on the podcast. The Wargaming NA guys are very open to talking about a lot of things. And, so let's give them some time so that they can evolve what they're doing and show us what they're trying to do for clans, instead of jumping on their back right away saying, oh, there's not too much oil and there's not big enough clans. Let's give them some time.
That I definitely agree with. And, I'm looking forward to clan battles. I always assumed that any kind of clan warfare would be tier 10, and that's why one of the big reasons why I like to push to tier 10 in my lines, and I like to play tier 10s. So to see that we're going to get competitive meta at tier 10 that's officially sanctioned, that just kind of warms the cockles of my heart, if that makes sense. Speaking of clans, the first round of qualifiers for Supremacy League took place last Saturday and were streamed with a 10-minute delay by a bunch of different streamers for almost all of the games. There were some interesting matches played between some of the high-profile teams, and it was cool to go back and watch the video on demand from on Twitch to see some of those games and how they were played and some of the tactics that people used. What were your thoughts on not only the games we played, Kami, but if you watched any of the VODs for some of the other games?
I'm not going to give away much because, go watch them. There are plenty of great streamers that did. I know Mejash was involved, Sir Venom, Quad was involved, Sea Raptor. There was a lot of great commentating and a lot of great coverage of all the qualifiers. There were some matches that were pretty fun. Honestly, watching other people's matches was, I think, more fun than watching our matches because, we were in our matches. But it's interesting to see how other teams play maps and how other teams make ship compositions. And, we're not going to get into specifics about that because we don't want, teams to be chastised or, or laughed at or anything like that. We just want teams to have good competitive play, and if you make mistakes, find what you did wrong and correct them, and have, the main thing is though, have fun. Have fun playing competitively, have fun being on a team with your friends, and just enjoy the time that you have. And I know we all want to win, and everybody has that competitive spirit, but in the end, it's just a game, and life will go on.
I just wanted to mention that I did enjoy playing in the Supremacy League matches. I feel like that the ones that we did get to play were, well organized by the moderators. I felt like the coverage on Twitch was actually quite high quality for the most part. There were a couple of minor exceptions, but for the most part, it was cool to watch those matches and have a commentator on both sides to have that discussion. So it's not just one guy talking, but have two guys having a discussion about what is happening and why and how that's going down. I particularly enjoyed watching Zoop and Sterling Archer as they kind of went through some of those matches and talked about, speculated about what the teams were thinking and what the tactics that were being used were. So I do look forward to seeing that again in the future and more. And we've got the second round of Supremacy League qualifier matches are this Saturday. So tune in on Twitch and check those out. When does the full season start, Kami, for Supremacy League? Is it the following week after that?
The full season starts, I believe, on the 30th. So, yeah, that would be the following week. Of course, qualifiers were moved back because of the hurricane, which we can all understand. So there was supposed to be a little break in between qualifiers and regular season, but we're going to go straight into regular season. I'll have the names of the main streamers for Supremacy League next week, and so hopefully you guys can catch them. And at some point, we will, of course, have the admins on from Supremacy League, maybe like mid-Supremacy League season, and ask them how they're, coping with the season, and if it's what they thought it was going to be, and, we'll have them back on. So look forward to that. But I look forward to it. Playing with Impact has been, a lot of fun. A lot of like-minded individuals that play the game the right way. And I couldn't ask for a better group of people to play this game with. So I appreciate them all.
It will be interesting to see if we get a season, quote unquote, of clan battles in the middle of Supremacy League, and how that will affect, both Supremacy League and clan battles.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of us have played thousands of games on this, and I'm sure that we would find the time to do clan battles as well, because I'm pretty sure we'd want to do clan battles over randoms. I mean, at least I would. I'm sure that would be echoed by a lot of people, but we'll just have to wait and see on, the release dates for Wargaming for clan stuff. But we do know dates for Supremacy League. We know that the season starts on the 30th. We know that there's another round of qualifiers this Saturday, I believe, starting at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. 6 more rounds. The standings are very close. I think there's 3 teams at 5-1, 3 teams at 4-2. So there's there's a lot of competition at the top of the board. So it'll be a good weekend. I mean, if some of the 5-1 teams lose and the 4-2 teams keep winning, there's gonna be a mad scramble for slots and divisions, and I look forward to it. I truly hope that it stays that way all the way to the end, and it comes down to you have to win it in, or you have to rely. That's what you want. You want that competition, and you want the best teams to go to each division, but you also want to have fun while you're doing it.
Absolutely. And, in addition to that, if you guys are interested in discussing the matches as they're being held, or you want to get links to the things that are the streams that are having them, there is a new Discord that's been created by Battleship Main Mark I from LRM. It basically is calling it the World of Warships NA Discord. We'll include a link in the podcast, but they have channels for, community contributors. They have channels for clan chat, clan recruitment. They have channels for there's a bar channel to discuss, the live events that are happening in warships, that are being streamed, so that you can talk about the matches as they're being played. And a lot of cool things like that, a lot of different ways to connect with people in the community. And it's, cross clan completely. So if you guys are interested in hanging out in that Discord and talking with people of like mind from the World of Warships NA, please check that out and check out the description the link in the description of this episode. So. I think that's it for this week, folks. We got through a lot of topics this week, Kami and Vanessa. Was there any things that you guys wanted to bring up before we close it out for the day?
Let's see. Let me think. Oh, yes, I'm back to streaming full time. I know I was out for a while, but I'm back. I know a lot of people have stopped in and said hi and everything, so that's thing. But other than, just look for Supremacy League. Enjoy Clan Wars and things like that when they come out, and be nice to the randoms, because at one point you were one of those people. So maybe take a random person under your wing and help them get better at the game. Maybe kind of like I don't know, what's that program? Like a Big Brother program. Yeah, a Big Brother program in World of Warships. I think that's what we need. Where
as long as we're not talking 1984.
Whoa. But just enjoy the game, enjoy ships, and hopefully you guys enjoy the podcast.
And Vanessa wants us not to shoot at her destroyers, right?
Yeah, don't shoot at my destroyer. No, I just want to thank everyone for listening, and I get so many kudos and love for the show every time that I'm playing, and it means a ton to us. I cannot express how much gratitude just seeing everyone having a positive experience with the show. We love you guys. Thank you for listening.
I couldn't agree more, Vanessa. And on that note, as always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter for updates between podcasts. And we want to, of course, thank the listeners that go beyond that and become our amazing Patreon backers. We couldn't make the show without the backing that you guys give us, and we really appreciate it. So if you're interested in supporting us, please consider becoming a backer yourself. And take care, everyone, and we will see you next week.